Hello, everyone. Here we are, episode 197, Healing the Mother Wound. This is multi-layered, healing this mother wound, because typically we mother others at the level we're mothering ourselves. Today, this topic hits home. December 7th is always a tender day for me, for my family. My sister Shauna, it's her birthday. She would be 52. She's 2 years younger than I am. I'll be turning 54 in the beginning of January. As many of you know, she took her life. She was a mother of 5, beautiful, gifted. Her birthday for me always feels like an invitation to revisit the death rebirth process in my own life. Yeah, it is multi-layered, this whole mother wound. What feeds a mother's deep soul needs. So today we've got spirit mamas, is what they call themselves. Victoria Nielsen and Tiffany Wilkes. Tiffany is a Reiki Energy Healer, sound practitioner, and spiritual coach. And Victoria Nielsen is an Akashic Records Reader, Breathwork Facilitator, and intuitive energy healer. In this episode, we talk about the tension. We got into this, and I didn't know we were going to, but we got into this tension between, authorized, let's just say religious gatherings versus unauthorized spiritual gatherings, and why more and more women are getting involved in sacred circles, rituals, being able to express their spiritual gifts openly rather than being in hiding or going under the radar. So we got into a lot of the woo in this episode, which, there's a space for that. There's a place for that. And I think that Tiffany and Victoria have a real grasp on what women need. And I hope you'll continue to follow us on Instagram, Cherie.Burton, as well as asked to join our private Facebook group, Women Seeking Wholeness, as we inch closer to our 200th episode, at which the name of this podcast will change, and it will be awesome. I can't wait. Spirit Mamas, welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. So glad to have you guys. Victoria and Tiffany, love the names too. Now, you both have had a really interesting path with coming into a space where you really are bringing women into some of these more ancient traditions that patriarchy has not smiled upon, shall we say. And so how are you finding ways to give yourself permission? We'll get into the semantics of what you're doing and in terms of like rituals and how you're bringing tribes of women together and how you're integrating it with your mothering and all of that. But I'm interested in, either one of you can start, but I'm interested in how you're finding ways to give yourself that permission and how you had to fight for that, if at all.
I feel like I'm doing that every day, right, Tiff? For you too? Hi, listeners. I'm Victoria. I feel like it's an everyday thing, honestly, because I feel like the world we live in is still not ready in some ways for women to take their power back and for us to remember and reclaim who we really are. And so it's a daily remembrance and a daily reminder and a daily devotion to myself that allows me to step forward and speak my truth in such a big way that the Victoria of even 5 years ago, I think would have never done. And I've noticed that little by little, it's become easier. Mm-hmm. It's sharing myself more authentically on social media. It's being and dressing more like the person that I really am every single day. It's in conversations with my husband, stopping to stand up for myself or to call out that, his way of thinking is an old way of thinking, or to open the dialogue to a conversation to say, I don't think that way. This is how I think and why. And I think it's in all those little moments, right? Like now I look back and I'm like, wow, it's been a huge shift. But while you're in it, it doesn't feel so huge. It just feels like minute by minute, moment by moment, like standing up for who you are and what you believe in. And the birth of my first son started it all and started me being able to even question who I was, and started that like delayering and that unconditioning and that shedding to then become the woman that I am today, that is going through a whole nother shedding now that I just gave birth to my second son 3 months ago.
Yeah, there's like the literal and the metaphorical shedding. When you have a baby, you're literally shedding. Right.
Yes. Yes.
That's a lot.
Literally. And it's interesting. I don't know why I feel called to bring this up, but like my menstrual cycle started again during the equinox. And I was so surprised, but then I was like, no, this is really fucking powerful that I'm doing it during the equinox and I'm shedding out any of this old energy so that I can step forward and be renewed. And I honestly feel renewed, even though we've been told in society that like that time of the month is supposed to be a bad thing and we're supposed to feel horrible. And like, I found that to not be true at all. So I don't know, Spirit wants me to share that with the listeners.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. We've done episodes on that where, have you guys heard of the red tent, like the ancient, gathering place for women who were going through their moon cycles and how they would like lay on the floor and put their heads together and like honor it and be circling up and celebrating it. And now it's just become this like dirty, unholy, unsanitary type of thing. And even the fact that they're called sanitary napkins just tells you where, they're at with that. Anyway, that's a whole other like rabbit hole to go down. I like what you shared there, Victoria, about, you had to come into a space of like, I have to give myself that freedom. And I have to, and everything, when you are shedding, you do start to, you're not thinking and feeling in ways you used to. And that means your behavior changes and people don't know what to do with you. And then you start dressing differently. And then you start, like your interests change to a degree. Your core values don't change typically, but it can be a lot for people to take in. They're not used to you showing up that way. Right. Yeah. So what about you, Tiffany? Like what have you experienced as you've had to give yourself this permission to just be you?
I've experienced releasing the fear around just being me. So I've always had a spiritual connection from the time I can remember. I was probably about 8 when I started, seeing spirits and, having very vivid dreams. And now that I know how to work with my dreams, I realize like I'm in another dimension. Sometimes I'm working, sometimes I'm actually dreaming sometimes. And so for me, growing up, it was like running away from who I truly was. But there was always this, like, I always questioned everything. I grew up in the church. And so I just had a lot of questions about why.
Do you mind telling me which denomination, or is that?
I was Christian based, and I would go from like my dad's side of the family was Catholic, but then my mom's side was like Baptist, and then we did like a non-denomination, but Christ was the savior, right? And so I had a lot of questions around, well, why is this person the savior? What about, and I would go deep, like, what about the people who live in the Amazon who will never know who Jesus is, and my mom would be like, oh my God, like, here we go with these questions. But I think as an adult, it just,
what about really India and China? Like,
right. And so as an adult, it just allowed me to really like lean into those questions, but then also lean into my, which is the fact that we all are connected to source, that we all are on different journeys to the same place, and that's that enlightenment, right? And so for me, showing up every day is like a lot of like what Victoria said, like letting people see the true Tiff, and with that, able to release the fear that I built for myself, realizing that people truly accepted me for who I am. So it's one of those things where it's like, for so long, I was worried about what other people would think. But then, I think after I had my first son, Logan, who's now 12, it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I'm looking at this pure spirit who comes into this life with not a fear in the world. He's living his truth because he knows nothing else. And how can I do the same? And so I think, watching my kids just be free spirited and just like these pure little souls, like trying to figure it out, it allows me to also be the same way. And then also remind them of the power that they hold, and that, there's really nothing wrong with being exactly who you were created to be, which is this spirit having this experience here on earth. And it's pretty amazing when you think about it. And I think that for me, it's just trying to embrace every moment, every day.
Yeah. That's great. And children are amazing teachers with that because they are fully present. They're fully in their bodies. Same with the animals, like crazy. I think they are our master teachers. Would you guys agree with that?
Totally agree.
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I feel like they show me the ways in which I still have to heal, especially my oldest. I mean, my second is still only 3 months old, and he's just like this little bundle of joy that I know we've had many lifetimes together, and I'm interested to see what he's here to teach me. But my oldest, man, there's moments where I catch myself mothering him the way that I was mothered. And my mother is amazing. I love her, but she did the best that she could with the tools that she had. And I want to do better. And I want to show him that it's okay to feel his feelings, to be 100% himself, to shine his light. And there's been certain instances, like this last week, he's been really clingy and needy. And I've had to take a step back and be like, whoa, like, is that the energy I really want to show him? Am I reacting to him versus like, you know, being in the present moment with him? And we start another round of healing the mother wound here soon. And every time we do this container, these things come up for us and show us the way that we still need to heal. And I think that's the beauty of being in ceremonial circle with other women, is they're holding space for us too, right? Like Tiffany and I are not here to be like, we are the gurus, we know everything. No, like we're mothers and women and healers here. Exactly, which is the best. Because, you know, we all have something to learn from each other.
Yeah, let's dive into that, because I too feel like, I mean, there's a lot of people that are really opening up that psychic mother wound that the collective has been carrying, both men and women. Certainly, as we talk about children, I mean, they're only ever reflecting, they're kind of the barometers in the home oftentimes, where like if it's going to show up in their body if there's an issue. And just listening to you guys, it just affirms to me that the best way that we can actually give our children permission to be themselves is for the mothers to do it. Right?
Yes.
And we have to create that safety to do it. And sometimes that does look like going out of the approved curricula and sources that we were given, as you mentioned, Victoria, you know, with the way you're raised, our parents only had a certain set of tools. And because of the way the collective unconscious was in their time, even if they wanted to do it the way we're doing it now, they would have literally been burned at the stake, right?
They probably were in previous lifetimes, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're all carrying that, because we may have been part of the problem, and that's a whole other thing. Like, we don't know what karma we're clearing of where we incarnated before or whatever. I mean, I know there's a lot of different belief systems around that. The importance is, we get to show up in this body right now, and we get to align with other like minds who are on that journey of awakening, evolving. So let's talk a little bit about rituals and sacred circles. I've been doing this for over 10 years before it was cool. I was doing it in secret because I was hiding and not sharing that it was the one thing, even though I was super religious at the time, I had to go outside of my religion to find this true open, you could call it a worship circle, you could call it earth and nature circles. I mean, there's many names. Priestess. I mean, I've been all over with pilgrimages all over the world with this, but I wasn't finding it in a patriarchal space. And so myself, I just extricated myself and followed my heart and found other women who were searching. I'm 53. I don't know how old you guys are, but I was searching for other mothers and other women who needed the permission to be able to access our spiritual gifts and intuition in a way that was not hierarchical, that was very collaborative, and that, again, like, it was so out of the box. I mean, you started talking about moon cycles 10 years ago, and people literally would have thought that you were the biggest witch on the planet. So
no, I think I love that you say that, Sherry, because Ceremonial circles are so important because, like, even when I think back, and it's funny because it just hit me, but like when I think about when I was like really involved in the church, like we would have Bible study, and we would have these women groups, and they were really just ceremonial circles because I really think that when you bring the power of more than one person together, that's when the magic comes. And so, I think that it's always been set in place, but then, like you said, it's like this, in the church, it's like, okay, well, you can only have this person at the head and you shouldn't talk about this. Well, now when I think back on just my experience when I was in the church, we always talked about our spiritual gifts, right? And it was like, well, some people have these spiritual gifts and some people don't. And how can you tap into yours? But I was like literally in a Baptist church, right? And I don't know if it was just the experience that I was having, but when you said that, I was like, wait, I've been doing this forever. But now it looks a little different just because I don't put myself in that box. And I think what Victoria and I have created, so we have a lot of beautiful ceremonial circles. We do a full moon circle every full moon where we bring women together, or men. We've had both. And we just come together and we meditate together. We may chant. We'll open the Akashic Records. I'll do Reiki, but it's really honoring the power and the beauty of the moon and like pulling in that energy. Then we also have our Healing the Mother Wound container, which starts tonight.
And this won't air until December.
I know. But we'll have other, we do it every quarter. Like we do it a few times a year. So we'll have more, but we've just found that it's just been so dynamic and powerful to really bring women together to heal the wound that, the ancestral trauma that we've brought over from previous lives that we didn't realize our mother and our grandmothers were carrying, and just really be able to tap into that and hold space for one another by doing these ceremonial circles. And so I think that it's always been around. I just think that now people are looking at it a little different. That's my take on it.
These circles are everywhere. I love that you guys are doing it. I know you guys are based in Atlanta and you probably do stuff online as well. I'm seeing this breaking out everywhere. You guys are my 90th something episode or interview. And I can tell you probably about 40% of the women and men that I have, mostly women, of course, interviewed are doing something very similar. At first, under the radar. Now they're being a little more vocal because they're starting to see how, well, first of all, women are tribal, so are men, but we learn through community. So you mentioned it when you were talking, Tiffany, about when people gather, it's more powerful. And I literally immediately a scripture came to my mind. I think it's in the New Testament where one or two are gathered in my name, there I will be also, or something like that. You're like nodding. Yes. That is a universal truth that we learn through community. And so it's very affirming and validating, especially if you're going through a transition, to be able to have these. And when you say ritual and ceremony, it can trigger people because it has a lot of old charge around those words. And they, people associate it with, the old paganism or even satanic worship or, evil or whatever, when in fact it's holy work to be able to gather in pure heart and consciousness to receive but let's talk, you mentioned opening the Akashic Records. We've dipped in and out of that a little bit on this podcast, but for people who aren't familiar with that, I know some people have the spiritual gift to be able to access that, but not everybody knows what that is. So which of you would like to speak to what that is?
Yeah, so I would love that everyone listening know that anyone can access the Akashic Records at any time, and that's part of what we teach women to do. You just have to come with an open heart, and the records themselves are really just an energetic frequency that you are emitting out of your crown chakra at all times. So Sherry, you have a record, I have a record, the listeners have a record, the podcast itself actually has a record that you can tap into by saying a specific prayer and raising your vibration and asking the ascended masters, teachers, and loved ones to guide any transmission that wants to come through. So for me, it's an energetic knowing and sometimes visuals as well, but people can use all of their senses when accessing the Akashic Records, and they're mutable. So they change based on your free will and your choices. And the really beautiful thing is that in the moment that you're tapping into the records, it's providing you the guidance that you need right then and there. So we always tell women that, we could open the records again tomorrow and ask the exact same questions, have the exact same group assembled, and get different answers, because you need to hear something different in that moment to enlighten you, to bring you forward on your path, to show you a new perspective. And I really turned to them and found them after a miscarriage. And they provided me with the healing and the positivity and the empowerment that I needed to know that I was supported and that things would continue and that there was a higher perspective on what I was going through. And they're one of my absolute favorite healing tools that we utilize in pretty much all of our sacred spaces.
That's beautiful. I think even in my religious upbringing, we learned about the Book of Life. And I've always looked at the Akashic Records that way. I mean, it's ever being written, as you said, it's being written right now. But I've also heard it's said that it lives in our bodies, the record of heaven is in your body, the story of the cosmos. And of course, we don't know how many times and where we've been as a soul and how that looks. And it's not linear, right? So it's all happening kind of right now anyway. The future
it's happening.
And it's mind blown, but yeah.
No, I love that. It really is. And I think, the more that I use the records, the more that I realize they have a definition for every individual person. You may resonate it more with it being a physical book or being in your body or being located in a star system. Or Tiffany actually asked me the other day, because she's been working closely with her starseed ancestors, the Akashic records that I tap into are from the Palladians specifically. Wow. And so she was like, well, can the other star seeds, do they have their own Akashic records? And I tapped in and asked, and I was like, yeah, actually they do. And I had no idea. And so I think the more that we ask these types of questions and the more that we expand and the more that we throw the rules out the window to say that it has to be this one certain way, it opens us up to so much more.
Yeah. You mentioned the Palladians and all of that. And so Syrians and Palladians and stuff, I haven't really dove too deeply into that on my podcast, because I know it's like a can of worms, right? And I believe these stargates are real. I believe that these star seeds, as you call them, a lot of people are talking about it now. They weren't 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, at least as openly. Is that your experience too? But yeah. What is that about? In a nutshell, I know it's loaded.
So really quickly, in a nutshell, without going down the rabbit hole, which I've been down the last 2 months, I'm still down in here. So what I am getting from my starseed, and like you said, nothing's linear, so everything's happening right now. So even when I say, I was this type of starseed, I am that starseed right now. And so what's happening is, just on a galactic level, there's change that has to happen that we agreed upon before we decided to enter these physical bodies here on Earth. And so that's why it's just the time. It's almost like when we talk about women have been told to do X, Y, and Z, right? We're coming into our truth as women, but we're also coming into our truth as galactic beings because of whatever assignment we signed up for before we got here on Earth. So there's just change that's happening all around us, that there's a certain few of us who are going to be able to tap into it and really help others remember their truth, remember why they're here, remember, how to save this planet. But there's also other planets that, as a starseed, we're trying to save as well in other solar systems and galaxies, right? So it's just this beautiful thing that we're doing, but
a unity, and
it is a unity, and it's really, is quite amazing and deep. And I have just been blown away with all the downloads that I've been receiving, because to be honest, when me and Victoria first launched Healing the Mother Wound about a year or so ago, it was the first time that I really kind of tapped into what a starseed was. The first week of our Healing the Mother Wound, we tap into our ancestors, whether they are physical ancestors or starseed ancestors. And so I started kind of doing a lot of research around it. And I'm going to be honest, I was feeling connected to all these different groups. And then recently, maybe about 2 months ago, I just started having these downloads where I'm realizing that I'm connected to quite a few, and that I have this assignment that I'm still trying to figure out right now because I'm in the rabbit hole, right? But I will tell you that I've been getting quite a few downloads from just like a lot of different starseed and galactic energy that has been quite mind-blowing. Like, it would have to be a whole nother episode, Sherry.
Oh, I know. I was like, do I want to open this up right now? Because no, it's interesting that you're speaking to this, because I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to talk openly, because a lot of people are getting, shall we say, cosmic messages. You could call it like channeling. There's many avenues of downloads, or how people are receiving and what they're tapping into. And there's books being written, and just listen to an audio book about this. I want to see, it's like, you're not dying, you're just waking up, or something like that. That goes into some of these things. And I've been dipping in and out of them just because I'm like, yeah, like I really don't think I can handle that rabbit hole right now with everything else that's going on.
What's funny is a few years ago when my oldest son he must have been maybe like 5. I remember, I told Victoria this like years later, but I remember waking up one night and there was bright like neon writing that was being like written out on my wall, and I thought like, am I going crazy? But then I like blinked and it was still there, and I was awake. And so I'm realizing now that was just like the communication that they were trying to get through to me to make me remember. So Sherry, like when you are like tapped to kind of do your research and back up, it's fine, because just like on the spiritual awakening, like you go so far and then it's like, and then you come back, and then you go back, and then you come back, and it's like this boomerang effect, right? But it's like when it's time, it's time. And so when it's time for you to get all the downloads that you need and really figure out why you're getting these messages from your starseed, or why you're even interested, I feel like it'll all happen when it's supposed to. So, you know, I think it's beautiful that you're willing to even tap into it.
Yeah, I feel like I have been doing that on a cosmic level for decades, but not specifically for what you're speaking to, like specifics, you know, planets or what have you. It's more of this priestess path and following the red thread of the divine feminine and what it means to be a mystic. And so I have really been fascinated with, like, I have, you know, my daughter that's in her 20s, you know, she's studying starseed stuff. And it's really on the radar of this next generation, you know, Gen Z. It's almost like they came in like, well, I've heard, and I'm sure you guys would back me up on this, that there was a clarion call that went out into the universe. Earth needs help. You know, flashing whatever. We need these great souls to come and kind of, like you said, you know, save the day. And each generation has their own mission and their own collective purpose. And then it doesn't mean that somebody in one generation couldn't tap into a future generation's mission too. Only that, like, I believe the women of my generation, Generation X, you know, that we came in and sort of innovated things, and we're like, we're not doing it like our moms and our grandmas, just like you guys are not doing it like your moms and grandmas. But then at the same time, we're like raising these star seeds. And that's not to say I'm not a starseed too. I think everyone is, but they have a different level of knowing. They are the ones exiting religion. They are the ones saying, why can't we have unity consciousness? They're the ones kind of alchemizing the earth, and they're doing it in different ways than we did it.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating.
I got chills when you were talking, because I think it's just a beautiful reminder that everyone's mission is different. Everyone's healing is different. Everyone's path is different. And it's no better or less than anyone else's. It just has a different purpose. And I was really reminded yesterday, as I was meditating outside and just sharing from my heart on our Instagram, that everyone's healing heals the planet and heals everyone around you. Like, you may think you're like this little being, this little person, like me meditating by myself, or me tapping into my divine feminine by myself doesn't do anything. It does. It has a ripple effect, and it raises the consciousness of the planet and of those around you. As Tiffany said, obviously it's amplified when you're with others. But even if you're not, if you're doing this work alone, if you're doing this work, you know, by yourself, you're still doing the work. You're still helping the planet. And I really have to just say, complete side note, the red woman behind you. So I know listeners can't see your office, but this beautiful priestess that's behind Sherry with
Mary Magdalene.
a red. Yeah. Is that who it is?
Uh-huh.
Okay. She's always with me. So I literally can't stop staring at her, but I've never seen her with the red.
I was like,
I only ever see her with the blue, but she's even more magnetic with the red.
Yeah, definitely. So that's part of what showed up for me too in my spiritual awakening X amount of years ago, was this image and this woman that we call Mary Magdalene, because I was in such a dogmatic space that I was trying to bust out of and I didn't know how. And she is of the Christian tradition. And so that was her archetype, and her actual historical presence came through as a means for my awakening. And everything from self-anointing and using essential oils to the concept of a divine couple, her and Yeshua or Jesus, to a master teacher of the way, capital T, capital W, of love, and all that embodies, because that is what is going, this Christ consciousness, you could say Sophia consciousness, is what is going to, I love that it's just calling it Sophia Christ consciousness, is what is going to heal everything. And when enough people, and it doesn't, like you were saying at the beginning, one of you, like all paths are kind of the path. Like it doesn't matter if we grew up in Pakistan or where I live in Utah, we're all moving to this, we're all going in the same general direction. We're just giving it different names and we're calling it different things. Ultimately, we're all in the path of this evolution when we're all in it together. And this is why I kind of rebelled against hierarchical, stratification-based groups. And when you guys mentioned a circle, and you guys mentioned that when you do a circle, it's not you, then them, it's together, it's unity. And until we have that kind of earthen collaboration, we're not really going to heal ourselves as a species. There's nothing coming in to save us from that. We have to create that. And that was a huge, whoa, for me.
No, I love that. That is so true. I feel like it's all about the unity, and more of us are getting that. And I'm excited just to see how it all turns out, because I know from what I've seen, it's all going to be positive, right? But we just got to go through this transition of everybody getting on the same accord. But it's all about the experience that we signed up for. So I think it's beautiful.
Well, you guys have been, I didn't know we were going to go this direction. I told you at the beginning, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to talk to you guys about. I might ask you about Akashic Records, but then we went, woo, and I love it. So where can people find you online? I will have this also in the show notes for people, but where's the best place for people to land to find you?
They should definitely follow us on Instagram. We're spirit.mamas. We are most active on there, silly reels, up to date on all of our offerings, but you can also check us out on spiritmamas.com. We have group containers, one-on-one work. We do this healing the mother wound work over and over again. And we're just so grateful, Sherry, for you inviting us on today, and for everyone listening. I think it just comes through so strongly that we're all here for a reason, and we have to follow that golden light and that golden nudge and that red thread, and that we are the cycle breakers. We are the ones in our own way to make change. And it can feel hard and it can feel difficult, but you're capable of it and you're here for it. And it's time to step up. It's time to step into the light. It's time to be unafraid, because you're not alone. There are so many of us out there that are shining our lights so that it's okay for you to do the same.
Beautiful. Any parting words from you, Tiffany? Thanks, Victoria.
Really, I just want to remind everybody to just remember, if you forget, we've all forgotten, but just stop, take a breath and say, universe, I want to remember. And you will be so surprised at the things that come through as we all work to be one collective, remembering why we're here, remembering, our true purpose. And we all hold this amazing power from source, because we all are a part of source. And so whenever you feel like you're down or you're trying to figure out what am I doing during this spiritual awakening, just stop and say, I'm so ready to remember. And I just want to say I love everyone, sending love and light to everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks to both of you for your transparency and your wisdom and your leadership. Thanks for listening, friends. In a few weeks, we will have our 200th episode, at which time, again, the podcast name will change. Just wanted to continue to give you the heads up on that so it doesn't throw you off when you see a different name for those of you subscribed, which I hope you are subscribed. And also check out Spirit Mama's free moon circle that they're offering. Any of your choosing, you just use the code FREE, all caps, at checkout. And that's spiritmamas.com/virtual-full-moon-circles. Again, that link is in the show notes. And undoubtedly, this holiday season is also a time where many emotions surface that are seeking to be healed and addressed. So I hope this episode will help you find your tribe, find your gathering people. And on that same note, Stand, Speak, Shine is coming up for a major revamp. The course and another offering that will help us connect more as a tribe and community that I'm super, super excited about to launch early 2023. As always, have a glorious week, and we will talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.